We start things off by seeing a divine hand holding a white orb and casting it off towards the earth. He explains that this orb is special, as it captures the reflections of many things and changes itself in response. The orb eventually glides down near a pile of rocks, transforming so it looks just like them. Many seasons pass while the orb remains in this form, until eventually snow begins to fall across the land. During one of these snow-covered days, an injured wolf appears from the south, where it succumbs to its wounds atop the orb. Due to this, the orb then takes on the form of said wolf, finally gaining consciousness, while also replicating the wolf's injuries, which it quickly heals. It then begins to walk and experiences senses for the first time. The coldness of the wind bearing down on it, and the scent of snow all around. It begins to wander aimlessly, when it eventually stumbles across a small encampment seemingly abandoned, all except for one young boy, who is both excited to see him and apparently familiar with him, calling him by the name Joanne. The boy brings him inside, where the wolf begins to feel pleasure from experiencing the cozy atmosphere and the food cooking on the roaring fire for the first time. Thinking that if it could speak, it would have said it wanted to stay here forever. The next day, while doing his chores around the encampment, the exceptionally cheerful boy explains to the wolf that he is waiting for his family to return from the fabled paradise that awaits far off in the south, and that they left for it 5 years ago. He explains that he wanted to go with everyone when they left, but wasn't able to due to the original version of the wolf biting him on the leg and injuring him. And so, he stayed behind to look after all the old folk that also weren't able to make the voyage. Some time passes, and the boy decides that he is pretty sick of being out here all alone. And so, he wants to find paradise and his family. So after gathering his equipment and stocking up on everything they need, he heads off in search. They make some pretty good distance, and eventually he finds a stone with an arrow pointing in the direction they're going. He takes this as a sign they're going the right way to paradise, and that his family must have left it for him. After continuing on for a while, he finds another marker, but as he makes his way over to it, the ice cracks and he falls into the freezing water. He gets out, thinking that it's just a bit of cold water, and nothing he can't handle, when he takes a look at the back of his leg and sees some sticks from the water which have stabbed into him. Not being able to travel any further for the day, they set up there, and later that night he bandages up his injury, telling the wolf that he'll be fine and that he's not going back. The next day, he pushes through the pain and continues on in blizzarding conditions. Yeah, that leg just straight up isn't looking good, Chief. He continues to push himself for a few more days, until he eventually comes across a final marker, with an X through it. And just nearby, he finds an area with a destroyed caravan and tombstones scattered throughout. He tries to optimistically state that this is amazing, as it means his family did come through this way and they're on the right track. But his hopeful nature begins to crack, as he can't hide the reality of the situation anymore, that he isn't going to make it to paradise. He then begins to break down, before saying that he wants to go back. After struggling to make his way home, he puts the fire on, and tells the wolf that his leg is healing well, and after it's all good, they're going to try and find paradise again. However, as he tries to sleep, a fever begins to set in, and he struggles out of bed towards his chair, saying that if he's lying down when his family all comes back, that would be embarrassing. Knowing that this is the end, he tells the wolf that he wants to be remembered by him forever. The nameless boy then leans back in his chair and succumbs to his injuries. After an unknown amount of time, the boy's body falls to the ground. The wolf tries to get him to move, but is unsuccessful. It then grabs a hold of the boy's coat, and immediately begins to take on the form of the boy. As it places the boy's body back into the chair, it opens the door to the cabin, and we see a vision of the nameless boy, reuniting with his family and wanting to be told everything about paradise. Back to the present, we then see it leave, in search of an even stronger stimulus, and will no doubt fulfill the boy's wishes of exploring the world. Hey boys, quick aside. If you're watching this video right as it comes out, I'm currently live over on twitch.tv/xmiticus, where I'll be playing Minecraft Hardcore mode, with the catch being that if I die, I lose money. Links to the Twitch will be in the description and pinned as top comment, so come hang out. I hope to see you there. As it continues southward, we are told that due to the stimulation and information it received when it was a rock, then a wolf, and now a human, it has begun to gain knowledge about the world. However, as he lacks all the qualities that make a human human, he still has a long way to go. Throughout its journey south, it has died on 6 different occasions, with failure to find food being the main cause. But for it, death is merely a different state, and it can quickly regenerate back to life and continue on, as each death is a learning experience. Meanwhile, in a nearby village, we hear a bell go off and a young girl, March, is found by her older friend Perona. Perona then begins to take March out of the village, telling her that she found a nice spot nearby and wants to show her. However, They're then stopped in their tracks by an armed group who questions what they're doing, because when the bell rings, the villagers must assemble. They then make their way back and join the rest of the villagers. And the leader of the armed group, Hayase, explains that their village was lucky enough to be chosen this year, saying that in order to appease the god Oniguma and bring prosperity to their region of Nanana, a young girl is needed, and that young girl chosen is March. At first, she is excited, but that excitement quickly fades as her parents begin crying at her, telling her that they're so sorry. March is confused, and Hayase informs her that she is going to die as a sacrifice to the god Oniguma. Some days pass, and the group begins to take March up the mountains to an altar at which she will be sacrificed. However, the group is ambushed by Perona, and March uses this distraction as an attempt to escape. During her escape, she trips and falls down into a pond below, where she notices an eyeball in the water near her. It then quickly retracts, and we see a very badly fucked up version of the boy, slowly regenerating from a bear attack he received sometime earlier. The pursuers also see him regenerating, and decide that they just won't worry about the girl anymore. The boy then absent-mindedly begins to walk off, and March, seeing no other option, chases after him. March then ends up feeding the boy multiple fruits, all of which he devours like a wolf.
Can you eat pussy like that?
As the two rest, March has a nightmare about her friend and baby sister being sacrificed to Oniguma in her place. She then decides to walk back to the main road. However, the boy follows behind her, and March jokingly calls herself his mother. She then tries to teach him some basic manners, but fails miserably while also giving him the name of Fushi. Elsewhere, Perona begins to use a blade that she hid in her boot to try and cut herself free from her bonds, when a giant bear shows up and begins to maul the ones guarding her. She then barely, get it, manages to escape from it, jumping off the side of a cliff and somehow not dying to the fall below. Hayase and the rest of her party then manage to find March and begin to take her away. And as Fushi is still basically a rock in a human's body, he doesn't do anything to stop them. Look at this guy. Not a single brain cell active in that brain of his. After Hayase gives March a drugged up jelly which knocks her unconscious, she carries her up the rest of the way to the altar, where they tie her down and begin to make their way out. As they're about to leave though, the giant bear who they assume to be Oniguma suddenly appears, as does Perona, who rushes in to try and break free March from her binds, but receives a swift strike from the creature, knocking her across the area. Seeing as they will have nothing to worry about, Hayase again begins to make her way out, just as Fushi walks in, seemingly unnoticed by them as the gate rises. Fushi then squares up against the beast, when he gets his head bit. Hayase and her crew then go atop the battlements and begin to watch this all go down. They see that even though his head is in the mouth of the bear, he is still alive and trying to do something. He then launches himself out of the bear's mouth and transforms into the wolf he previously was, where he, to the shock of all onlookers, manages to not only put up a fight, but attacks its face to such a level in which it bleeds out. Afterwards, Hayase gives them an ultimatum. Either they, including the wolf, come with her to her homelands, or they die, to which the girls choose life. And after, March gives the wolf some food, not knowing that it's Fushi, when the wolf responds by uttering the words that March tried to teach him earlier along with manners, by saying thank you. Some days pass, and they continue to make their way back to Hayase's homeland, Yanome, taking the somehow still alive but unconscious Oniguma with them. In the back of one of the carts, Fushi, March, and Perona meet the shaman who chose March to be the sacrifice in the ritual. They ask her why she's in the cart with them though, and she lets those dogs out, revealing that her feet are chained, and she explains that she is a criminal, and was hired as a fake shaman in order to help those from Yanome murder, manipulate, and control the villagers of Nanana, as they desire them for themselves. She states that Yanome's end goal is to control all of Ninana. Seeing as Fushi still doesn't really get how bodily functions work yet, he makes piss in the back of the cart. But luckily, they stop by a small lake, and upon looking at his reflection in the water, he thinks back to the boy and his words of "remember me." Fushi then transforms back into the nameless boy. A few weeks pass, and they eventually all arrive in the country of Yanome, where Hayase gives them a change of clothes to fit the culture, and states that Perona and March are no longer women of Ninana. Hayase lets them enjoy themselves and eat at various food stands. However, the food they're eating has been drugged and they all fall unconscious. Upon waking up, Fushi is inside a large prison cell, and up above, we see Hayase telling some unknown people about him, declaring that he is immortal. Another prisoner is then dragged into the cell, and it's revealed that the man has been promised that if he can kill Fushi, he can go free. He runs in and stabs Fushi, but to no real success, as he heals instantly. But then it's Fushi's turn, and he stabs the man in the shoulder, learning a new word. It hurts. Well, that's unsettling. Fushi then transforms into a wolf and tries to escape, but is shot by Hayase with a poisoned arrow. March then tends to Fushi's wounds, and using the arrow stuck inside Fushi, Perona comes up with a plan to take a trophy from the bear's hide, escape the prison to Ninana, and use it to prove that they no longer need to sacrifice anyone to Oniguma. After Fushi and March are then caught digging their way to the bear, Hayase forces March to take care of the bear. But despite her efforts of taking out all of the arrows that have struck into it over the years, the bear succumbs to its injuries. As it passes away, this experience then lets Fushi open itself up to a new stimulation. Meanwhile, Perona is forced to launch her makeshift escape plan after falling into a storage shed and being spotted by a guard. She takes him out and disguises herself to be able to reach March. Perona then helps Fushi, March, and the old woman out of their cells and begins to take them out of the prison. March then sees Perona about to cut into the bear to retrieve some of its hide to show everyone back home. But March tells her not to, as that would be a cruel thing since the bear wasn't even Oniguma. Perona eventually relents, and they escape out of the prison using a wagon to head back to Ninana. While escaping though, they begin to get attacked by Hayase and her guards, which are giving chase. Hayase tells them that if they simply give her Fushi, then their lives will be spared. But March and Perona refuse, and Perona continues battling the guards. March then sees Hayase lining up a shot on Perona, and decides to defend her, by jumping in front of the arrow just as it's about to hit her. Upon seeing the arrow strike March, Fushi jumps out of the back of the cart and transforms into the giant bear. We then see a flashback, where March is playing by herself with Perona looking on over the course of several days. March then approaches Perona, and is given a little stuffed doll that she can play with instead of just using her hands. March in response then gives Perona a thank you feast, and asks her if she wants to become a family with her, saying that March will be the mother, Perona will be the father, and the doll will be their child. Back in the present, March is struggling due to her wounds, with Perona trying to stop the bleeding. March then tells Perona that she should become a mother in her place, and Perona tries to reassure her that she will be fine, and that all they need to do now is go home. March then asks Perona if Fushi is there, and Perona lies, reassuring her by saying that he is. March then passes away, after saying thank goodness. Perona then carries March and begins to head towards the now rampaging Fushi. As she reaches him, she thanks him for fighting for March, and Fushi then looks down at Perona and transforms back into the boy. While holding March, Perona grabs a sharp object, saying that they will go home together, while facing Hayase. We then see March nearby, after having a dream about what her life would have been as a grown-up. She's realized that she died, and sees Perona about to take the sharp object to her own throat to join her. As March begs her to stop, Fushi grabs her by the arm and stops her, transforming back into the bear, and they begin making their way back to Ninana. Once they make their way back to the home village, Perona gives the news about March's death to her parents, and a man then runs in, saying Yanome soldiers are nearby. Knowing that they desperately want Fushi, Perona convinces him that they need to part ways for both of their sakes, and that his life is for his own to live. After he sets out, Fushi smells a fruit above and transforms into March, heading towards a new journey. Hey, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. And one more time, I am streaming right now over on twitch.tv/xmiticus. I hope to see you there.